Hello. As we all know, Qui Gon Jinn died on Naboo. What would have happened had his Force Ghost communicated with Anakin Skywalker? Would Anakin stay in the Jedi Order? Or would he be able to overcome his struggles with the Jedi? Special thanks to Artsabers for sponsoring our 75,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. All the details are in the pinned comment down below. Our story begins in the year 29 BBY, the same year that the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, was able to collect his very own Kyber crystal. This year was the very first year where Palpatine really began to put his influence on the Skywalker. Shortly after Anakin gained his Kyber crystal, the Supreme Chancellor took him on a mission to Coruscant's underbelly. Chancellor Palpatine was in disguise as he slowly became someone Skywalker could see as a mentor. It was a brilliant play made by the cunning Sith Lord. He knew that Anakin would struggle to find home with the Jedi because of their polar opposite way of lifestyle compared to that of what Anakin was already attuned to. Being a Jedi was really hard for Anakin, and Palpatine preyed on it, taking advantage of young Skywalker's mind. With Skywalker away from the temple for a set amount of time, Palpatine could become this father figure for Anakin, and even more than that, a mentor. Palpatine gained Anakin's trust immediately, and became to him what Obi-Wan had not. Anakin and Obi-Wan were still a bit rough around the edges at this point. The Council threw Obi-Wan to the wolves, and he had to instruct a student who otherwise would have been difficult for an experienced master to handle. Anakin didn't get along with his peers, and he struggled to find balance and peace within himself. Obi-Wan wasn't exactly much help either. When Anakin was considered a youngling, Kenobi wasn't anywhere to be seen. The only silver lining in Anakin's life was his friend who was a year younger than him in Barriss Offee. She was the only one of his peers who was at all nice to him. Aside from her, everyone else was brutal. Skywalker often got into struggles with his peers, and only one time did he ever act out violently towards them. Of course, that was something that he was reprimanded for and told to not do again. In the spur of the moment, he was called a slave to his emotions, and he reacted emotionally, and ignited all of his peers' lightsabers and lifted it up above them. Mace Windu and Obi-Wan were watching the event transpire, and Kenobi had to step in and stop it from happening. Mace didn't trust the boy to begin with, but threatening his peers left a sour taste in his mouth. Of course, it's always the ones who respond who get the blame. After Palpatine began to etch his nails into Skywalker's skin and began to convince him to trust him, Anakin doubted the Jedi and doubted if he really should continue his study as a Jedi. Shortly after Anakin's mission with the Chancellor, Skywalker would tell his new master that he would like to leave the Jedi Order. All in that moment, young Skywalker would surrender his lightsaber to Obi-Wan Kenobi and tell him that he believes the galaxy was calling to him to do something much more important. These were not words from the universe, nor the galaxy. It was a voice inside of his head. It was Palpatine's voice. Because every voice that he ever heard that was inside of his head came from the Supreme Chancellor. He twisted Anakin's mind, and it slowly began to work. Obi-Wan couldn't force his young student to stay in the Jedi Order, and so doing the only thing he could in the moment, he trusted himself and the path of the Jedi, requesting that Skywalker join him for one final mission. If he couldn't convince Anakin to stay within the Order, then he would let him go, and he would allow him to go into the galaxy, being the individual he wished to become. Anakin appreciated Obi-Wan's words, and he took them to heart, agreeing to join Kenobi on one final mission. The two Jedi were being sent to the world Carnelian IV, where a war was currently going on between two warring tribes. The Open and the Closed were two tribes of the planet, and their war would ravage their planet and their people to a possible brink of extinction. Kenobi and Skywalker would spend a short time on the planet trying to quell the war from destroying the world. The Republic, on the other hand, was preparing to launch warships to the planet to stop the fighting themselves, which would only worsen the situation. So in a last-ditch effort, Obi-Wan had Skywalker fix a computer terminal in one of the main complex buildings, so that Obi-Wan could tell the Republic off. When Anakin fixed the computer, with the help of one of the locals, Obi-Wan called out to the Republic fleet. He told the fleet that they could not enter the system because the atmosphere was covered in Tabana gas. This in all actuality was a deception laid by Kenobi, and when Skywalker asked Obi-Wan why he lied to the Republic, he told his student it gave the locals more time to decide on peace so that war wouldn't destroy their people. Anakin was surprised but inspired by Obi-Wan's quick thinking, and because of it, he decided to remain a Jedi. It wasn't an easy choice for Skywalker to make. He felt some grandeur adventure that awaited for him, but the path of the Jedi was not one of adventure, or whatever Master Yoda liked to say. Anakin's decision would only get harder on him as the time since Carnelian IV passed by. He and Kenobi would be dispatched on several missions ever so frequently, but when Anakin was inside the temple, he had a hard time. Skywalker felt like he always needed to be doing something. If he wasn't, then he felt like there was no point living. He was frustrated with the lack of adventure when he was stuck inside the temple, and to make matters worse, Obi-Wan would from time to time scold him for his actions. These scoldings were rightly placed, just not rightly received, which had Anakin scoffing and storming back to his room and lugging one of his mechanical tools across the room and putting yet another dent into the wall. Anakin at this time turned around, bright red in the face and as per usual, heart full of excitement, though this time, again, for the wrong reasons. He and Obi-Wan sparred and Anakin was on the verge of beating Kenobi. His master got out of it and told Anakin that he was being far too aggressive. Being so aggressive wouldn't help him in the long run and would only stunt his growth as a Jedi. Anakin didn't understand. It was so unfair. Obi-Wan was holding him back. That's the only thing that made sense. He plopped himself down onto his bed and heard his name.
Anakin.
He turned his head, looking around, trying to see if he could find out this mysterious voice or who it was. Anakin shook his head. He must have been hearing things. He put his head back against the pillow on his bed, and then the voice called out to him again.
Anakin.
The voice sounded familiar. Anakin said the words Master Qui-Gon, but nothing could be heard back. Anakin thought he was a fool to assume he could hear a ghost speak. He closed his eyes once more, and then he heard a soft echo call out from across the room.
Young one, do you question your lessons in becoming a Jedi?
Anakin popped up and looked around. He knew he wasn't hearing things this time. He reached out his hand and pulled his lightsaber to his hand, ready to strike at whatever was challenging him or calling out to him. He'd heard voices in his sleep before, but he clearly wasn't sleeping now. This was something else. The voice called out to him again before he ignited his weapon.
Aggression will never help you face your fears, Anakin. Do you fear what it is that you cannot see, or what it is that you have not felt?
Anakin called out to Qui-Gon, asking how this was possible, but all he heard was silence. Anakin lowered himself back to his bed and closed his eyes, listening through the Force and hearing the questions over and over again in his mind. He looked up and spoke back into an empty room, telling the voice that his master was jealous, impatient, unable to understand him. Anakin didn't like feeling this way. He swore he wasn't aggressive, and he swore he wasn't afraid. The response crawled over his shoulders and sent shivers into his spine as Qui-Gon said,
Your master is following the Jedi way more strictly than I would have. However, his lessons are for your betterment. I do sense great fear in you. I knew, just as the Council did, that you would struggle with your training. It's against your nature, but your master is patient, so trust Obi-Wan. Don't be afraid. Allow the Force to flow through you, but never let it control you.
Anakin jolted up, telling Qui-Gon that he had so many questions, but he could already feel that Qui-Gon's essence had left the room. For a moment, he felt like Qui-Gon was really there with him, and maybe he was, but how could he confirm that? There was no way he'd bring it up to anyone, but maybe there was a point to be had, something that he could take from the words, to not be afraid and to trust the Force. Anakin wasn't really sure what never letting it control him meant. He was only 13 after all, and he didn't really have a good idea of what that could really mean. How could the Force control someone? Surely that was impossible. But it was possible, and it could very easily control someone like Skywalker, who had a tendency to rely on the dark side or even be controlled by his emotions. As the weeks passed by, Anakin began to pick up on it, realizing that maybe what the voice of Qui-Gon was referring to all those times was that his emotions got the best of him. When he sparred with Kenobi and tried to beat him within an inch of his life, or when he stormed off after being called out for being rather rude. Anakin would go months without hearing the voice of Qui-Gon. The next time he heard the voice was shortly after an encounter he had with another mentor figure. Palpatine requested that Jedi Padawan accompany him on a mission to Naboo, and Anakin was super excited for it. Obi-Wan allowed Anakin to go because he believed that Anakin could use some time away from the temple. This came after a long period of no missions for the two Jedi, and it also gave Kenobi some time to learn more about the teaching. This separation was what the two of them needed in all actuality. Anakin hadn't heard from Qui-Gon for months, and his patience with his master was running low, because he believed he was being treated unfairly by Obi-Wan again. Skywalker, while on the planet of Naboo, was looking forward to the chance of seeing Padme, but she had since left the royalty of the Queen's office and moved into becoming a senator. He hadn't realized that until they got to Theed and the Theed Palace and she wasn't there. The time in Theed for Skywalker would be fine and enjoyable. Being with Palpatine meant that he got to eat upper class, which isn't to say life inside the temple wasn't already upper class, but Naboo upper class was a little bit different. It was royal, and their delicacies were much different than the typical ones seen inside the Jedi Temple. During their time together, Palpatine would continue to spout off his overzealous opinions to Skywalker, telling him that he would become the greatest of of all the Jedi, telling him that he was much wiser of a Jedi than any of the ones he'd ever encountered before, filling Anakin's little ego to the brim and putting these delusions of grandeur to his mind, and he ate all of it up. After a full day with Palpatine and the Naboo royals, Anakin would be sent to bed as a guest in the guest room, and he would feel the presence yet again. The voice called out to him,
Anakin, not everyone's intentions are as pure as their words.
Skywalker pounced back, demanding to know what that was supposed to mean. Anakin continued suggesting that Palpatine had befriended him. He was only trying to help him out. Maybe he was being too kind, but his intentions were surely pure. How could a politician not have pure intentions with their words? Anakin was so befuddled by Qui Gon saying this that he assumed it was a trick on his mind. The voice responded to Anakin's dilemma.
Your ambitions are high, my boy. When your ambitions are not tangible in the moment, your mind becomes a playground for those who wish to control it. Be weary.
Anakin sat back down, listening to the words said by the voice of Qui Gon Jinn. Surely he had a point, but how could or why would Palpatine want to manipulate him? Qui Gon Jinn, on the other hand, being the one with the Force, could see all that happens within the Force. He was a vessel of it, traveling across the great scope of time. However, he could not interject himself. He could not tell Anakin that Palpatine was a Sith Lord. The Force is as it wills, and being that Qui-Gon was no longer a part of the living, he was restricted to only knowledge. He could inform people who walked among the living with the information or the whereabouts to retrieve information, but he could not tell them what it was. Everything is as the Force wills, and Qui-Gon could only interject so far. Telling Anakin that his ambitions were high and not to trust everyone's word wasn't too far. Specifying that Palpatine was something he on the surface level clearly was not would be way too far and would disrupt the cosmic balance of the Force. When the Force is disrupted, things happen in response, such as Skywalker's birth as the chosen one in this era. Qui-Gon knew that decisions made by an individual could obviously change the face of the future. Should Anakin continue on his journey this pathway, he'd bring balance at some point, yet it would require a dyad to be formed in the Force to restore the balance once more. If Skywalker decided to listen to not just Qui-Gon's words of wisdom, but also Kenobi's, he would offset the current trajectory of time. After Naboo, Anakin from time to time would reflect on these words said to him by Qui-Gon. Being that Qui-Gon didn't want to upset the cosmic trajectory of the Force, he could input himself only when he believed he could use his words to help and soothe Skywalker through his turmoil. The next time Qui-Gon would visit Anakin would be on Tatooine. During a year of high stress within the Galactic Republic and tension between Anakin Skywalker and his mentor Obi-Wan, Anakin was dispatched to the planet Naboo to guard Padme Amidala. When he was there, he had visions of his mother in great pain, and so he and Padme left for Tatooine. Qui-Gon visited Anakin moments after his mother died in his arms. This time, the former Jedi Master appeared in a blue shadow. Anakin slowly placed his mother on the ground and grabbed his weapon from his belt. He looked up with blood in his eyes. The split second before he ignited his lightsaber, he looked into the eyes of Qui Gon Jinn. It didn't stop his preparation. Anakin stood all the way up and he rested his hand over the ignition switch on his lightsaber. He growled under his breath. Fire sat in his soul and the dark side clouded everything in his eyes. All he could see was red, and yet he was in darkness, under a tent with a tiny fire next to him. Anakin could almost taste the blood of the Tusken Raiders who sat just outside that door.
You've certainly gotten taller.
Anakin didn't want to hear it. His blood boiled inside of his veins, and yet the calm demeanor of Qui-Gon Jinn's sarcastic voice seeped into his heart like a poisoned dart. It slowly began to corrode every inch of darkness. Anakin looked away from Qui-Gon despite how unrealistic it seemed. He couldn't look into Qui-Gon's eyes. He couldn't even muster the words to say hi.
What shames you so bad that you cannot look at me, Ani?
Skywalker looked back up at Qui-Gon Jinn and took a deep breath. The anger that etched at his heart slowly vanished. It crept back into the tomb and it screamed into a lockbox as it disappeared from Anakin's face. Qui-Gon saw it, and Anakin felt it. It was exactly what Qui-Gon said it was. Shame.
Do you believe that killing the Tusken Raiders would bring you happiness? Would revenge best suit you? Would killing a whole tribe be okay to you tomorrow or the day after? Anakin, do not give in to the darkness. It gives short-term rewards but long-term suffering.
Anakin nodded his head. He still couldn't muster the words to say anything to Qui-Gon. He turned around and wrapped his mother up in cloth, and when he was finished he turned around to see if Qui-Gon was still there. But there was no sight. When Anakin brought his mother's body out of the tent, he took her up to where a speeder was. As he placed her body on the speeder, he turned around and looked back. The suns were rising over the planet and over the village. The Tusken Raiders were nomads. They were cruel and vile, but they didn't deserve to be slaughtered. Anakin took out a pair of hollow binoculars and looked down at the camp. He could see a number of kids running out to the first sight of dawn to meet each other. They could play in the morning. There were a group of men that had just returned with a hunt for the early morning food. Anakin thought to himself, these hunters wouldn't have seen their families again. The last sight would have been a blue lightsaber ravaging through their camp in the darkness of night, only to have returned and found their disembodied figures. What kind of damage could he have done to their civilization? Would they forever fear the color of blue, or lightsabers? Would it build up a mythology or a tragedy of some godlike being that could take life in the middle of the night without a sign? Anakin turned back and got on the speeder and shot off. He was truly saddened by the loss of his mother. The pain from it cursed his heart with an inescapable palpitation. While the Tuskens did an unspeakable thing to him, it would have been worse for him to kill them all off. Revenge wasn't the Jedi way, and relying on the dark side would only continue to burden him. During the ride back, it hit him like a star cruiser. Everything Obi-Wan had said and been saying to him about patience and so forth, along with withholding his anger. It was all right. Obi-Wan was never trying to hold Anakin back. He was trying to teach Anakin how to become a good Jedi. There were flaws of that, of course. There were flaws especially with the current Jedi Council, of course. But the miscommunication between Anakin and Obi-Wan was just that, a miscommunication. Anakin not understanding that what Kenobi did was always in his best interest. This sat on Anakin's heart, nestled down neatly right next to his feelings about his mother's death. Anakin felt an insatiable guilt for his mother's death, but also for how he treated Kenobi. It made Anakin wonder what would have been had Qui Gon been his teacher. Through 3 basic interactions, he was able to completely redirect Anakin's thinking and show him that his gifts that he had were unique, but not to be tampered with. They were his, and Obi-Wan was never jealous of him. He never wanted Anakin to suffer or stay down, and every sacrifice he made is what Qui Gon would have done. Sure, Qui Gon would have said it in a better way, communicated an emotion through a better stanza, and filled the role of a father figure in a more paternal way, but Obi-Wan was always enough. As Anakin stopped the speeder at the Lars homestead, the line ran through his head 3 times and again. Obi-Wan was always enough. He never had to be perfect, because Obi-Wan was always enough. Anakin turned around and picked up his mother, and took her to the burial site. Before leaving for Geonosis, Anakin would sit with so much guilt. He would feel the burden of his murderous thoughts he had. He could only imagine what killing those Tuskens would have done to his psyche. He would have ran around in circles trying to escape the memories, and now all he had were the memories of looking back and seeing a tribe of people living. A much better thought than seeing all of them spread out across the sand like ashes on a volcanic river. After Anakin and Padme got to the arena and barely escaped thanks to the help of the clones, the trio of Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan would find and follow Dooku to his hideout. When Padme was knocked out of the vessel, Anakin almost jumped out after her. Obi-Wan told Anakin that he needed him, and the end of the war could come if they helped each other. In a singular moment, Anakin was taken back to Tatooine, looking into the eyes of Qui Gon Jinn. Anakin returned to the moment, and he told Obi-Wan that he was sorry. Kenobi was in a quick-thinking mindset. They needed to stop Dooku before the war escalated off of Geonosis. Anakin grabbed his master's attention before they got to the hideout, and he told his master that he had his back. He would follow his instruction to the T. Kenobi was honestly very confused where this was all coming from, but he appreciated it. Honestly, it was the first time he ever got it. When they got to the hideout, they leapt out and followed Dooku in. Hopefully reinforcements would be on the way, but for now, Kenobi and Skywalker had to hold their own. Obi-Wan knew much more than Anakin did that Dooku was a generational talent. Very few Jedi in history wielded a lightsaber like Master Dooku did. He was incredibly skilled, and for these 2 much younger Jedi, they would have to work closely together to keep him at bay. When the 2 Jedi ran in, they said their words before battle, and the 3 of them inclined their weapons. Obi-Wan would issue out orders to Skywalker, and the 2 of them would move in. Anakin on the left and Obi-Wan on the right. Their blades collided with Dooku. They moved around him, flanking each of his sides, but Dooku's skill was too fantastic. He blasted their blades back and attempted to electrocute them. Anakin was quick to defend himself from Dooku's electricity. Obi-Wan struck his blade down and Dooku met him. The 2 of them bounced off each other, and Obi-Wan and Skywalker met back up with each other. They played it slow, catching their breath, preparing to move in together. Dooku grinned. He could tell that he outplayed them mentally. His confidence was drowning out any confidence they had against him. The two Jedi stood side by side, with each other almost encouraging Dooku to make the first move, and he bit the bait, moving in with incredible speed and throwing both of them off. Dooku knew that Kenobi was held at high esteem by members of the High Council, so targeting him would be his first concern. Plus, Obi-Wan was taught by Qui Gon, who was taught by Dooku. That made him an easier target. Dooku beat back Obi-Wan quickly. Anakin tried to keep up. Each strike he made was blocked by Dooku. Dooku turned back and used the Force to throw Anakin from his feet, without electricity. Obi-Wan moved on Dooku, but not fast enough, their blades moving faster than eyes could see. The two of them stopped as Dooku threw Obi-Wan off his balance. The Jedi Master slammed his boot back down into the ground and held his blade out in front of him. Dooku grinned, and then he heard a lightsaber ignite from behind him. Before either of the three of them made a move, the sound of a cane could be heard. Dooku's mind and attention went to his former master, and he turned over towards the door that the Jedi arrived in. He saw a shadow get larger and larger and larger, and under that shadow sat the small Jedi Grand Master himself. Dooku's teacher, Yoda. The Grand Master saw the three lightsabers, dropped his cane, and ignited his own weapon. Dooku was officially outmatched, and he himself knew it. He had to dispatch the Jedi Knight and Master so that he could escape, but with Yoda here, that was not an option. The Grand Master leapt across the room to Dooku, and used the Force to push Dooku off his balance. The fallen Jedi stammered and regained his footing. In that time, Yoda told the two Jedi to disable the vehicles so that Dooku couldn't escape. Obi-Wan and Anakin moved quickly as Yoda jumped into action, blasting his student with a strike. Dooku blocked it, and did everything in his power to keep pace with Master Yoda. Dooku had played this game before, and only one had ever come out on top, and it wasn't him. The two of them traded blows, but Yoda's speed was too great for his own. When Anakin and Obi-Wan disabled the vehicles, they came out, ready to bring Dooku to justice. When Dooku saw that he was surrounded, he did everything he could, yet it wasn't enough when Yoda threw him against the wall with the Force and took away his weapon. With Dooku captured, the Clone Wars would continue and begin. With Dooku out of the picture, there would be some obvious changes to the Separatist government. However, the war itself wouldn't change with Grievous assuming control of the already pre-planned army for him. The war would be mitigated by Sidious to ensure that all went by his plans. Dooku, behind bars, wouldn't do much in the way of the war effort. However, it would have a significant effect on the public view of the Jedi as the war passed on to the third year. Instead of a former Jedi leading an effort against the Republic during the 3-year war, it was a droid general. Of course, Dooku mounted up the Separatists, but with the beginning of the Clone Wars behind them, and the end of the war on the horizon, the only enemy was General Grievous. As the war came to a close, Anakin Skywalker was promoted to the High Council, and during the same span of time, he would learn that his wife was pregnant. After learning of her pregnancy, he would have nightmares about Padme's death during childbirth. One night after Padme went back to bed, Anakin sat in her residence, a dim light looking over the city. He could feel Qui Gon Jinn's energy return. Anakin looked over and saw Master Qui-Gon looking at him. Anakin smiled. Qui-Gon's essence gave him peace, but clearly this was another lesson for him to hear. Qui-Gon spoke up.
Do you believe that the Force is always in motion?
Anakin nodded his head. He looked outside and saw thousands of starships buzzing back and forth. Coruscant was always alive. So was the galaxy. But that's not exactly what Qui-Gon meant. There was a deeper message in what he said. The Force was certainly alive, and always it was in motion.
Then why do you believe that acting on your dreams will stop them from happening? Would they not only perpetuate what you fear to transpire? Remember, Anakin, the Force is always in motion. Yoda knows this from his journey through the Force with me. Go back to one of my first lessons to you. Trust the Force.
Anakin closed his eyes with a tear slipping out of his left one. It slid down his face and into the smile that crossed his cheeks. A chill ran down his spine, and he felt at peace once more. He would have a moment to show his trust in the Force. Qui-Gon had a point. The future was always in motion. Yoda said it several times throughout Anakin's training, and the following days, Anakin would have the moment to choose his path. A path to force himself on a situation and to break the will of the Force, or to trust the will of the Force, to trust what outcome would come from it. In the council chambers alongside of a beautiful sundown, Skywalker thought on all of his fears, all of his struggles over the last few days, from Ahsoka's return and quite frankly neglect of him, to his promotion of the Jedi High Council without the rank of Master, his former mentor being the Sith Lord, and the end of the war or on top of his wife being pregnant and about to give birth. So many thoughts ran through his mind and his head, but he sat in the council chambers alone. He thought on everything that had transpired. He then came back to the words shared by Qui-Gon and then the words shared to him by Master Yoda the morning after. Yoda expressed that Anakin should be careful when sensing the future. Of course Yoda would know. He was nearly 900 years old. He'd been through this hundreds of times, surely. He was the Grand Master, having taught several generations of students over the years. To train himself to let go would allow him to take in this moment in stride, to embrace the journey rather than to chase the finish line. And then Anakin understood everything that both Yoda and Qui-Gon had said to him. In a culmination of realization, Skywalker understood what he was missing before, and that warmth that he always had when he felt Qui-Gon's presence arrived. This time, though, Qui-Gon wasn't there. This time the warmth was generated from Skywalker's trust in the Force and in himself, not relying on the dark side and allowing what is meant to happen. If Mace were to win the battle with Sidious, he would. If Sidious were meant to win the battle, then he would. Afterwards, Skywalker could make a decision based on what happened rather than interject in it. Hours would pass by without any Jedi Masters showing themselves. After the night swept into the early morning, or just 1 a.m. Coruscant Standard Time, Anakin saw the door in front of him open. It was Jedi Master Shaak Ti. She asked to speak with him. He nodded his head, and she sat down in the seat next to him. It wasn't her seat, but no one was here. She told Anakin what had happened. Windu, Fisto, Kolar, and Tin entered the Chancellor's office. None of them survived. Master Windu successfully captured the Chancellor and dealt with the clone troopers who assumed he was trying to assassinate the Chancellor. Windu was then cut down by the increasing number of clone troopers in the room. However, caught in the crossfire was the Chancellor, who was also killed. The Jedi Temple guards sent by Master Windu arrived to find out that the clones were extremely hostile. When the Temple guards subdued them, they found none of the other clones to be so hostile inside the Senate building. The Temple guards shut down the Chancellor's office, and currently the Temple Battle Master, Master Sindralik, was handling the situation. Shaak Ti said softly to Skywalker that the Order was going to make a move against the Senate by taking control of it until the end of the war. With General Grievous destroyed, it wouldn't take much to do so. Anakin was honestly taken aback. He was very surprised by the death of everyone in the room, but he told Shaak Ti that he had trusted the Force to guide the wisdom of the Council. It was a wisely worded sentiment, showing Anakin's maturity, but also telling Shaak Ti that he trusted the Force more than the Council, which was understandable at this point. The coming weeks would see the Republic in shock, with a Jedi takeover of the Senate, with many of the survivors of the encounter with Palpatine and Windu recalling nothing but a recurring command, Order 66. Their minds were probed, but all the clones repeated was, "Good soldiers follow orders." They were the only survivors of the encounter with Mace Windu. Through this, though, it would be revealed, with the help of Captain Rex, now Commander, and the Kaminoan Senator, that there was a contingency plan put in place by a man of the name of Tyrannus, the same man who had been in jail for 3 years. The contingency plan was a Sith plan to have the Jedi wiped out, and when it was revealed that Palpatine had a hidden lair on Coruscant and the Jedi discovered all the Sith artifacts in his office, it only became clear that he had been manipulating the war. The Senate would suspend all policy aside from the ongoing peace treaty with the Separatists until they could rebuild their corrupt democracy. Padme wouldn't give birth for another month, and it would be as healthy as ever. The lack of stress would allow her to give birth at a proper time, and the twins would be the most pleasant surprise for the two parents. Skywalker wouldn't abandon the Jedi Order, having learned what he had learned from Qui Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan over the years, only encouraged him to assist more Jedi in understanding the Force as a whole. As a council member, he could make changes within the Order that couldn't be done without a council member. He would also be granted the rank of Master for assisting in bringing balance to the Force. Anakin's relationship would remain a secret, but his happiness would not. Anakin would joyfully live out his life. With the extinction of the Sith, peace would reign triumphant. But as Qui-Gon said, the Force is always in motion. Good would rise, but so would bad. But never would the stench of the Sith prevail again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our story. And special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth, Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Jedi Sloth, Mad Manic Studios, Anakin 003, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, The Man with 3 First Names, Dark Saint 46, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button. Let's talk about our story. Obviously, guys, I'm still a little bit under the weather. Yes, the last video, the Earth video, that was pre-recorded. I pre-recorded that before I went to Boston the other week. So that was pre-recorded. I was very thankful that was pre-recorded because I couldn't have recorded that the other day. I'm still getting over my cold, but this one is, I'm not going to lie, probably one of my new favorite stories. It's kind of fun. I hope you all enjoyed the sound effects in it. I'm a musician, so I was able to like use reverb and some of the musician tools I use for like other things for Qui-Gon's voice, and I thought that'd be kind of fun, and I hope you all enjoyed that aspect of it. It was something that I thought would make the story feel a little bit more realistic. Now, I feel like a common question is, why wasn't Qui-Gon listed more in the story? Why wasn't he more of a trainer? I do have a real reason for that, and it's because I think Qui-Gon would have been such a perfect teacher for Anakin that every time he communicated with him, it would have had almost a transcendent experience. And I'm really putting Qui-Gon up there. I think Qui-Gon's really dope as it is, but I'm really putting Qui-Gon up there. I'm kind of, deifying him because, like, I think Qui-Gon could just speak Anakin's language, first of all. I think that's something that Obi-Wan just didn't do. I don't think Obi-Wan spoke Anakin's language. And I think Qui-Gon would have been able to communicate that to Anakin in the way that Anakin needed to hear it. I chose 4 specific moments in Anakin's life that would have been really good for Qui-Gon to implement a lesson. Remember, Qui-Gon is a part of the living Force, right? He's existent within the plane of the Force, but he's not a living being, so he cannot directly interfere. So that's why all the Force Ghosts didn't show up at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, it would have been really cool. Yeah, it would have been cool. But it's why they didn't, because Force Ghosts cannot intervene in that. They all exist in that moment. They all existed within Rey, but Rey was a physical embodiment of them. She was all the Jedi in that moment. I know people don't like the line, but she is all the Jedi in that moment, and that same thing goes for this. Qui-Gon cannot directly interfere with what Anakin's doing. The only thing that he does that's really directly interfering is appearing in front of Anakin, but in that moment, I did something, and I have to say I'm actually really happy with what I said there, because it's probably the most Qui-Gon line you could ever say. You've certainly gotten taller. That whole line to me is him saying, I'm not directly interfering, I'm just making a distraction. I'm appearing in front of Anakin to make my appearance, right? And so it's that little split-second decision that's different from what happens in the movie, which is him just saying, Anakin, no, which doesn't really go a long way. And I think each of these interactions play a very pivotal role in how Anakin develops at the end of the story. And that was something I really tried to shoot for, was even though I didn't really have a full plan going into this, I wanted each of these lessons to contribute to what Anakin's decision is at the end of the story. I know the end of the story isn't as action-packed as I typically do the end of the stories, but I wanted to first of all, I wanted to do something a little bit different, where Mace Windu and Palpatine both die, which is kind of interesting, and something I might explain in another video. But I wanted all those lessons that Anakin compiled to come together in that moment where he decides to stay in the council chambers, to have all his teachings from Obi-Wan, his teachings from Yoda, his teachings from Qui-Gon, and kind of being like, I shouldn't. I should trust the will of the Force. And that right there, I think, is the difference that Qui-Gon can make. I think 4 conversations with Anakin probably could have saved the galaxy. I'm not saying Anakin would have been like the mega cool Jedi, but I'm saying that, like, if he had like 4 conversations with Qui-Gon, I'm fairly confident that he wouldn't have turned into Darth Vader. 4 rightly timed conversations. I think that's really all it was. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Smash the like button. I love you all. Spread the love. And always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.